How you doing? I got a 2003 F350 with a diesel, single rear wheel. I'm going to do rear brake pads and rotors, calipers, and the wheel seal. You know, the bearing for the wheel bearings for the seal. Okay? So you want to jack it, support it, break the lug nuts loose, take your tires off. Make sure you got supported good so it doesn't fall off on you and hit you in the head or smash you. Okay? So I got the tires off. And the next thing you're gonna do is take the caliper and the brackets off. What I'll do is, since I'm gonna be doing calipers, I'm gonna pinch off my return line or my brake line with a pair of vice grips. I don't have the special tool to crimp them properly, so I'll crimp them down with the vice grips just enough to restrict the flow and also so I don't smash the hose. All right, so then I'll take my line off the caliper. This might be a 14 or a 15. I have to let you know. Yeah, it's a 14. Okay. So if you're changing the calipers and take this one off, it's a 14. Make sure you get a pan underneath to collect the fluid. And then you want to take your caliper bolts out. There's two of them, one here and one down below. Those are 14 millimeter also. Take those out. And then you want to take the caliper bracket bolts out. Those are 18. There's one here and there's one down below. Okay, there's two of them. Okay, then you can take them out and then the whole thing comes loose. And then you can separate your caliper from your bracket, because the pads have a metal tit sticking out. And if you don't push the pistons in with the pad to get the caliper off, then you're gonna do some damage to your calipers. Some have the plastic pistons, or if they get the metal pistons, then they're really hard to get off. So you're better off just do it this way. They come right apart real easy. You're gonna take them apart anyway. So we'll get that done. Okay, I took out my banjo bolt, which was that. That was a 14. And the caliper bled into my pan. So now I'm gonna take out my caliper bolts. Two of them, 14 also. Caliper bolt, two of them, 14. Okay, the caliper's loose, but it's not gonna come off because the pistons get stuck on those little tits sticking out on the back of the pad. So now I'm gonna remove the caliper bracket bolts. Those are 18. Okay, when you take the caliper off, finish draining it into your pan. The bracket falls right off the caliper. Here's the pad that goes onto where pistons go. See a little tit sticking up? They get stuck on the pistons, so you have to sort of pain in the butt to push the pistons in when it's on the vehicle. So I always found out that this way is the best way to remove them completely together with the bracket. Okay, if you're not gonna replace your calipers, make sure you clean up your slide pins. Make sure they're not frozen. You can turn them. This one's turnable, but it's stiff and no grease in it. So you want to put some Seal Glide inside there and clean them up. And then you want to take off your pads, take off your bundle clips, hardware. And that area there gets full of rust. Rust expands. And when it does that, it tightens up on the pad so it doesn't allow the pad to move properly. So you want to clean them up also and then paint them and put new abundant clips on them. And also remember, don't forget about clean and lubing your slide pins. These are your slide pins, okay? These are really stiff, so, okay. All right, sometimes some of them have a piece of rubber on them, so don't switch them, okay? I'm getting new ones, so I don't have to worry about it. They come pre-lubed, rebuilt. Okay, that's that. So you need to get your rotor off. If the rotor isn't loose, okay? Kind of loose. So, but if yours is loose, frozen on there, then you'll need to put some penetrant around it, around your stud holes and around the main big circle there. And then you hit it with a hammer. If you're replacing the rotor, then you're gonna hit it with a hammer on the surface, like a 3-pound sledge. The vibration breaks it loose, and you can hit it on the backside. And if you can turn it, turn it. Sometimes you can't. You can hit it on the backside, break it loose. Do it equally if you can. Okay? If this side's stuck and this side moves, you stick a screwdriver in there on this side, pull on it, tap on this, pull on this side again, tap that back in, pull on this side again, tap on this side, pull it out. It's just, you're working it back and forth, that's all you're doing. And you're banging this side in, then you can pull this side out more. So you're just switching the direction of it, because you're trying to get past the brake shoes that are inside here, okay? Okay, I got the drum off, but upon inspection, check your shoes and your parking brakes, make sure that they're not separated, okay, like that, or wore out. So if they're separated or wore out, then they need to be replaced. So if it's your vehicle and you don't use it, don't worry about it. Customer's vehicle and they don't use it, don't worry about it. Customer's vehicle and they use it, replace them, because you're going to be taking the hub off. Because I'm taking the hub off. Perfect time to do it, because you'll never get them all replaced with the hub on there. So next, all I have to do is remove these 8 bolts here. They're 18s. Take them out and you smack the end with a hammer, 3-pound sledge. What it does is it causes a shock and causes this axle to kind of like bounce out, okay? If it's stuck in there. All right? Okay, customer don't want them fixed. All right, so I got all the bolts out of the axle. It wouldn't pull off, so I'm gonna just hit it just like that. You see that? Boom, comes right off of there. So now I'm here, make sure you have your pan underneath so it drains into the pan. Okay? So then you get yourself a rag, so when you pull that axle out, you can wipe off the shaft as you pull it out. Then set it aside somewhere, okay? This one has an O-ring on it. And sometimes I use a gasket instead, but this one uses an O-ring. Here. It's right there, okay? All right. Alrighty. Okay. I got 6 sockets. None of them fit that one. This is the ratchet type. So I need to get the socket for it. I might be able to use 2 punches to get it loose, but I'm gonna need the socket to go back together to properly torque it. So I need to take a break. Okay, here's the proper socket for it. I got it at Advanced Auto Parts, okay? It's bigger than your standard one. Let's see, where's my standard one at? Okay, there's that, the old style, new style, okay? Bigger, okay? So, what you want to do is get a breaker bar out and break it loose, then you can use your little regular 1/2-inch ratchet, okay? Okay, driver's side is left-hand thread. That would be reverse. And passenger side is right-hand thread, which would be the regular thread, okay? So, driver's side, left-hand thread, which means you want to remove it. You're going to go to the right. Okay? Okay, because I removed it, so if I want to tighten it, I gotta put this on there. Okay. So, tightening up the regular way is reverse, okay, which is left-hand thread. If you want to remove it, it goes the other way, okay? So, driver's side, left hand, passenger side, right hand. Passenger side is confusing. It's the regular direction that you would take something off, okay? Reason why they do that, because the wheel turns this way and this side, and they don't want this thing, if it got loose somehow, that it would unthread its bearing and the wheel would fall off, okay? That's the reason why they do that. So you got it on there, 1 or 2 threads, and then you can pull on your hub, break your hub loose from the seal contact in the back, and then once you can break it loose, then you can remove your nut and then take the hub the rest of the way off. Okay? Okay. Got your nut on there just a little bit. Remember, it's left-hand thread to tighten, so just left-hand direction. Get them on there. Okay, and then you stick a pry bar in between the shoe and the back of the hub, and you push it off. Okay? You pry it off. On this one, the seal stayed in the back, but that's fine. You pry it off the rest of the way when you get the hub out of there. Okay? So, I don't know if I can remember how to do this now, because everything's backwards on this side. Okay, I gotta use my tool. There we go. Tightening. Okay. Like I said, it's confusing. All right. That's tightening. So. All right. Confusing. Okay. Got it off. And then get the rest of the way. All right. And when you get it off, you want to look at your bearings, see if you see any chips in them or anything. And then you want to look at your race. And look at your race on the inside there and make sure if you don't see any chatter marks or any pips in them, okay? Same thing with the inner bearing, okay? Don't see no chatter marks or anything in them. You feel them, see if there's any markings in them. Spin this bearing, look at it, see if there's any pits in it or any flaking or anything, or any flat spots, you know, them would be chatter marks. Okay? The bearing comes right off, but the seal is the one that's stuck on there, so I'm gonna get my pry bar and I'll pry that seal off. Let's see. Stick it in there. Pry it off, just like that. All right? You don't want to drop your seal, your bearing, okay? Match this seal up to your new one. Make sure it's correct, because they're different. Dual wheel and single rear wheel, okay? Okay. I took my parking brake shoes off. What I did was I took the hold downs off first. I turned the spring because the little pins were frozen in there. So I turned the spring, they came off, okay? And the little springs, they just flew across the room, but this is what the pin looks like, okay? Oh, there's one right here. Here's a spring. That slot goes in there. That little pin goes in there. Okay, that goes in here, okay? Let's see, set you up, get an idea what it looks like, okay? And you turn it, and it comes out, okay? So, like that. So you get them off. Now you can pry the bottom out. What I did was I stuck a screwdriver in here and I pried them off, okay? They're a booger to do because there's a big ass spring behind them. I can do the outer spring with the conventional spring tool, okay? That's what they look like, and it's got a big spring behind. So what I did was I took this spring off with my tool, and then I hit this spring with a hammer and a screwdriver, and I popped it out. Then I get the whole thing off, and I just put it on there just so I could show you. So, man, it's just such a booger to do. I'm not putting new ones on, so I can't actually tell you how to put the new ones on. I don't know. One thing I can tell you is to clean it all up, get them all cleaned up, get your threads cleaned up inside your adjusters, run the adjuster all the way down, put some anti-seize on your threads, put your new shoes, new springs, new adjuster, new spring in there, just like this, and then line it up in there and put it in there like this, you know? So you can put this shoe up in there, and you turn this one out like that, and you stick a screwdriver in there, and you pry this one out and over on there. It's the only way I can tell you. And then you can put this spring on, and then you can put your hold downs on, push your pin through, and then compress your little hold down with a screwdriver, push it down there, and then turn your pin or the spring so it locks onto the pin, and then you'll be good, okay? It's the only thing I can suggest on that. Next I'm going to be doing is my hub bearings and seals. You want to clean up your hub. Look at your bearings, make sure there's no checker marks in them or any flaking. They all look good, then you can clean up your bearing and put your bearing in. Well, if I'm going to clean up my bearing, that means I'm going to lose most of my fluid in my bearing, so I'm going to pack it with grease. The inner bearing. Inner bearing I'll pack with grease because that's the last one that gets fluid. So I don't want my bearing to be damaged before it gets fluid to it. Okay? Most people say just put the gear lube on it. That's fine. But I'm not taking that chance. I want that have lubrication before the fluid gets there. Okay? Okay. See the rust ridge right here? Need to remove that. Use it with a wire wheel and then use some sandpaper, okay? Try not to damage it so it will damage the seal. So I'm removing this rust ridge because I don't know how far the seal actually goes. If the seal goes under the rust ridge, then the rust is gonna cut the seal. So you need to clean them up. Okay, removing most of it. It's gonna be pitted inside there, but that's fine. Here's my sandpaper. Not real coarse, but it's coarse enough. What you do is you put it on there like that, and you grip it in your hand, and you go like that. That way it rides with the seal. Okay? Do that with both hands. And you clean it up really good. Okay? You get the idea. Hopefully. This side's pretty good. The other side was pretty rusty. And if you are going to put brakes on it, you might as well put backing plates. You know, parking brake, you need backing plates because backing plates, they all rusted out. And they'll pull the pins out. So, better off if you're going to do parking brake shoes than to do the backing plates also. Now you're running into more money. So, if you don't use the parking brake, don't even worry about it, okay? So, just a reminder, these are all cleaned up. You know? Put some grease in your hand and wipe it on there. Rub it all around, okay? Before you put your hubs on. Next, you need to pack this inner bearing with grease. Also, upon cleaning, this one onto the bearing. Okay, so when you pack this bearing, put this on there right away. Okay, it's got little nubs on it that actually ride on side where the rollers go. Okay. Hand pack bearing like that. Put grease in the palm of your hand and push the push the bearing against your palm of your hand and push it into the race of the bearing. Okay. Okay, you hand pack the bearing, put the bearing in there, put your little shim back on there, remember? Okay. It's flat, and you can put your seal on. See the seal's got that bead sealer there? That makes it a little bit harder to get on there. But if you got like a pipe that'd fit right in that groove, that'd be perfect. Little section, and you can hit the pipe. I got a bearing, fits right on there. Does a pretty decent job. That way I can hit on the bearing. If you don't, you can use a punch that would fit right in here and work it all the way around, but get it started first and then work your way around. But I got that. So when you put the bearing in there with the grease on, take the excess grease and wipe it on your spindles, okay? Especially where the seal goes, all right? So here's the finished product, okay? And there's what we gotta do next, pound that seal on there. If your seal doesn't have the grease in there, then wipe some grease in there. Next thing you wanna do is put some gear lube on your outer bearing and your nut. Remember, don't get them mixed up because one's left hand and one's right hand. Okay? Some 80/90 on there. This chuck probably takes 140. So I'll put it in there so it goes through the rollers. This one gets gets the gear lube before the inner one does. So you don't want to put grease on that one because the grease will stop the flow of the fluid to get to that inner bearing for a certain amount of time. So, but I put grease on the inner bearing because it takes longer for it to get the lube to it. So a little bit of grease isn't going to hurt anything. It actually helps me so I don't have a bearing failure. Okay? So now we're going to put your hub on, put your bearing in there, and then your ratchet nut. Don't forget, left hand, right hand. Okay, I lined up my hubs. They were tight going on, so I use a block of wood. Put the block of wood on here, hit the block of wood in the center of my 3-pound sledge, and it pushes the hub on, okay? Remember, they were hard coming off, so they're gonna be hard going back on, okay? So hopefully with the lube and the grease and all that on there, didn't damage them. Should be good. Now, next we need to put our bearings in there with our ratchet nuts. On your spindles, there's this groove. It's on the top. And your ratchet nut has like a notch sticking down. So that needs to go in that groove. Okay, you line that up and then you can tighten your nut up. Okay? Line that up to the top groove in the spindle and then tighten your nut up. Remember, driver's side is left hand, passenger side is right hand. Okay, take your socket and your regular ratchet and snug up the wheel bearing. And while you're tightening it, you want to turn the hub, okay? So it's snugged up. Next, what I'm going to do is, these are used bearings. I'm going to torque it to 60 foot-pounds while I'm turning this at the same time. Okay, once I get established a 60 foot-pounds torque on the driver's side, left-hand thread, hopefully your torque wrench does left-hand thread, torque it to 60 foot-pounds, and it's a used bearing, back off 7 clicks, okay? If they are new bearing, back off 5 clicks, okay? Used, back off 7, new, back off 5. 60 foot-pounds first, okay? Okay, 60 foot-pounds. Now, need to back it off 7 clicks. So, this is driver's side. It will be left-hand thread. So, let's see how this works out. Okay. Number 7. I don't know if you heard them. Okay. Now I'll go do the other side. I'm doing both sides just so you get the idea. Okay, now this one's gonna be an off, not an on. Okay, because this is regular thread. All right. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay. There you have it. Be honestly, I like the 5 clicks myself, so I redid it to 5. All right. Now you need to clean off the end of the hub. Clean off inside there. And then put your axles in there and put some grease on your O-rings, okay? And then push them in and put your nuts, your bolts on. As you're putting the axle in, when you get it in so far, like this far away, it doesn't want to go anymore. So you're gonna have to push it down. So that way it tilts the end of the axle up. So it goes inside the rear end pumpkin, inside the side gear splines. And once you get them in there, just wiggle around and then boop, goes in, okay? And then you'll need to tighten these bad boys to, I think those are 45 foot-pounds. I'm gonna double check. Yeah, the spec says 80 on these. I don't know. The older bolts, I could say 80. I'm gonna do 65 because there's so many of them. So I'm gonna use a torque stick. So that's what I'm gonna use, a torque stick. A 70 foot-pound torque stick. So that's what I'm gonna use. Spec says 80. I don't trust it. I'm gonna do a 65, so. Okay, my axles are torqued. Now for my rotors. So make sure your surface on your hub where the rotors go is clean. If they're not clean and they're all rusty, make sure you clean them up. These have been done before. They got anti-seize on them, so I'm gonna clean them up a little bit. And I'm gonna put a new film of anti-seize on them. And then I'll put my rotors on. New rotors, make sure you clean them with soap and water, some Windex, some glass cleaner, degreaser. Do not use brake clean, okay? Okay, I'm using new calipers. But if you're not using new calipers, you need to push the pistons back in using a C-clamp with an old brake pad and push them in, okay? And then you need to clean up your caliper slides, which is these. Put some Seal Glide on them. Take them out and put some Seal Glide on them. If they're frozen, then you need to replace them. And then you need to clean the contacts up where the hardware go, where the pads ride. And then when you get it cleaned up, and you paint them. I painted these are brand new, or remans. I painted them because they'll rust. This helps slow down the rust. Then you get your banjo bolts, put your new washers on them, copper washers. Put them on them. Okay. And then we'll mount our caliper brackets. Use our caliper bracket bolts. It's these. These are 90 foot-pounds. Don't believe me, look them up yourself. I just give you ballpark numbers, okay? So I'm on our caliper brackets, and I'm gonna torque them. And make sure that when you install the caliper, that the bleeder is up. Up. Oh. That's not up, it's upside down. Make sure the caliper bracket, the bleeder is up, okay? That's up. So this one goes on the driver's side. This one will go on the passenger side, okay? Okay, bracket's on. Now it's time to put your pads on. See how the clips are? You don't want to stay in. Okay, got them in. Got little springs on there. See the little tips, remember those? Yeah, okay. So, put them in there like so. Push them in. See how I'm pushing this little spring tension on them? Okay, got them both in. Now you do the same thing with the inner one. All right. Got them in there. Okay. Might take two hands. Okay. Let's see. All right. Make sure you don't put the yeah. Make sure. All right. I gotta put it down. Make sure you don't put the backing plate facing the rotor. Okay. Make sure you're facing the pad towards the rotor. Okay, I got them both in. All right. Now I need to put my caliper on. See the flats? Sometimes the caliper slide pins, flats, have to line up with those. So make sure you line them up in case this one needs to be lined up, okay? All right, okay. Make sure they're lined up, the flats, lined up with that flat. Flat on the caliper, flat on the slide pin, okay? Top and bottom, get the bolts in there and torque them down to 20 foot-pounds. Double check your torque specs. Next you need is your banjo bolt and your two copper washers. Washer on the bolt and then put the bolt through the line and then the other copper washer goes on it and then start it in the caliper. Make sure all the old copper washers are off the line and off the bolt. Make sure it's only the new washers on it. See, washer on the inside, washer on the outside. Snug it up. Make sure you push it in so it goes into the flat. If you don't get it on there, it's going to be crooked. Cross thread it, break the bolt, whatever. Okay. These are like 15 foot-pounds. Double check your torque specs. I always snug them up pretty good. It's a hollow bolt, just so you know. Okay. And then when you get it tight, and you can take your clamp off, so the fluid will start going inside the caliper. And then you want to take off your bleeder, take your bleeder out, put some anti-seize on it, and thread it back in and have it a little bit loose so gravity bleed the air out of it. Line's tight, remove your clamp, let it gravity bleed a little bit, put some anti-seize on your threads or your bleeder, and then put your bleeder back in and just leave it on a couple threads loose. Okay, see how it's dripping? Dripping pretty good. So all you want to do is hit the caliper, give it some vibration that helps get the air bubbles out of it. Okay, and then you want to close the bleeder, pump the pedal a couple times, open your master cylinder cap, come back here and bleed it again. Okay, push your pedal to the floor a couple times, take your master cylinder cap off, top off your fluid, come back to your calipers and open your bleeders up. Bleed it. See if you see any air coming out. Don't see any bubbles, no nothing. So that means I'm good. Okay, this is the passenger side. Now you need to do the driver's side. We'll check that side. I do everything kind of like the same, you know. I take this bolt off over here, I take that bolt off over there. That's how I do it, you know. That way, got my sockets all at the same time, okay? See if there's any air coming out of that one. Man, he's bleeding pretty good, ain't he? Gravity bleed. Looks good. So now I'm gonna close her up. Okay. Put your little bleeder caps on too. Okay. I am done with my brakes. If you just did one side, do the other side exactly the same way. It's just the same thing, except for the bearing nut, that ratchet nut. Driver's side is left-hand thread. Passenger side is right-hand thread. Double check your fluid level. Make sure you got your cap back on. Put your tires on. Torque them to 140 foot-pounds. Get it on a level surface. If it isn't level already, but get it on a level surface and double check your rear end differential fluid level. Okay? Pretty sure that's like 80, 140, 90, 140, something like that.